Good evening, good morning, welcome to week 5 of PSSL 6240, Political Violence Terrorism, here at George Washington University. Just want to start off with a couple of announcements. Adobe Connect Session 2, 28 May, this upcoming Thursday. We'll do it at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think it was a pretty good one for the first one, and you guys know who's briefing for the second one. And again, hopefully this will stimulate ideas for the briefing that's coming up, or for the paper 2 that's coming up. So again, get those slides to me sometime on Thursday so I can upload them. Please do it in a PowerPoint format, just so it's easier to upload that way. Paper 2 is due 31 May. You see the assignment there. It's basically something that shouldn't take you too long. Put some effort into it, but it shouldn't take you too long. It's designed to be a short, concise memo, like you have at work. Someone comes in, reads this article, and you see the articles in the section there. They come to you and say, "Write me a short memo that I can take to the press, whether this is a threat or not." That's how it works in the real world. In the real world, someone's going to see a newspaper article that says Al-Qaeda determined to get ricin. He might be a senior policymaker, he might be a governor, it might be a mayor of a city, and he goes up to someone like you and says, "Write me a policy on whether I need to be worried about this. Write me a memo if I need to brief the press on whether this is a real threat or not." That's how I kind of want this to be. I say 1,200 to 1,500 words. I'll be really strict on it. If it's 1,510 words, don't hand it in. It's designed to be as precise and short, and how well you can write in a very short and cogent manner. And that's what this paper is evaluating. So again, short, concise, get to the point. Please let me know if there's any issues with this paper. Please let me know beforehand. I will not accept day of or day after saying I couldn't get my paper because of X, Y, Z. If there's a legitimate medical issue, family issue, speak now so I know ahead of time. And one last thing, the third Adobe Connect session, we're going to hold that on 10. Right now I'm tentatively scheduled for 10 June. So please keep that on your calendar. That might fluctuate a bit, but just keep that on your calendar for now. What I also want to do is a federal jobs kind of job talk as well. How to get a job in the federal government, how not to get a job, what you need to do. So you guys have a little bit more career progression. So I want to actually cover that in the third Adobe Connect session. So those are week 5 announcements. Just overall paper issues. Way too much background. Do not give me history of the organization. Do not give me the definitions of terrorism by the State Department and the NCTC. When you're writing these papers, assume I know. And the only thing that, if it's a very obscure topic, then give me a little bit of background on. And I could say that after reading about 100 to 150 papers while teaching here. Someone in this class gave me a topic so obscure that I had to actually really read up on it before I actually had to evaluate his paper. However, assume that I know your topic, I know the group you're addressing, I know the different definitions of terrorism that are through the federal government. Assume I know that when you're talking about paper 2. So do not give me the background you guys gave in paper 1. And I was very explicit on some of your comments. Strong argument, clear thesis. Don't muddle your arguments. I need to know right up front. Do you believe this is a terrorist organization? Why? Or not a terrorist organization? Why not? Underline it, bold it, make sure I'm clear on it. Some of you didn't have that very clear right at the onset. spelling and grammar. Yeah, no one should be telling you this at the graduate level. I would recommend having your significant other or somebody else take a read at your papers before you submit them. And then just key assumptions check. And what I mean by this is Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A lot of you brought that paper up. If you're assuming that Hiroshima ended the war, ended World War II, you have to ask yourself, if that assumption is wrong, and there's a lot of people who think that assumption is wrong, your whole paper gets thrown out the window. So make sure when you're making these assumptions that you check them, you verify them, you make sure that there's if there's no dispute, you make sure there's no dispute, or if there is dispute, make sure you address those in your counter arguments. So those are kind of the big issues that I had with the paper. Just review of last week. Terrorism adaptation, I think we all covered that pretty well. The organizations you guys talked to in detail. The point is to ask that question: why some succeed and why some fail, and where are those pivot points? Where are those patterns that say, why we still talk about Hezbollah or why we still talk about Hamas 20, 30 years later? Well, no one has ever heard of Sikh separatism. No one's ever heard of the Earth Liberation Front. No one's ever heard of Om Shinrikyo. No one remembers those organizations anyway. Why? What are the variables that say this terrorist organization succeeds and this fails? What were those decision points that the terrorist or counterterrorism organization made that forced the terrorist organization one way or another? And then I wanted you to do is to compare it to ISIS. Because, these patterns tend to repeat themselves in one way or another. I gave you the model that I had about splits in the organization and exploiting those splits and radicalization and leadership secession. Are we seeing that with ISIS now? When you're reporting it, at what point are we going to see those types of splits? So just, again, think about those organizations you researched and transfer that into what we're seeing now. Again, ask why succeed, why fail. Is ISIS on the way to success or failure? Are we a year from now going to be talking about ISIS being the dustbin of history? Or are we going to be talking about it actually being part of the political process in Iraq? Something to consider. Dirty War, the movie. Great flick. I'm a little hesitant at offering movies in an academic environment, but I think it was worth it because it was a great movie. I think some of the key takeaways, I think they made the movie, let's just say, transporting weaponized uranium is a lot harder than they made it out into the movie. A dirty bomb, in order to be effective, it has to be kind of some sort of weaponized uranium to actually cause the casualties that you saw. But otherwise, I thought it was a very good movie. You saw everything from testifying on Capitol Hill, and something you'll do if you live in the D.C. area or you at least support someone, to the first responder issues with that. So great flick. I hope that flick kind of inspired you a little bit to be in this program and see how you can transfer that to your next jobs. And then the Om Shinrikyo classic case study on Om Shinrikyo, how they acquired sarin, why they were successful, and more importantly, why they were not successful. Om Shinrikyo, as I mentioned in the lecture, is almost like despite their resources, despite their lack of scrutiny, they still could only do this relatively small sarin attack. I think it's kind of one way to look at Om Shinrikyo, and you could see there were several points, according to that article, where Om Shinrikyo could have been stopped with relative ease. And the question is why it wasn't. Or we actually pretty much know why it wasn't, but the bigger question is, could something like that happen elsewhere? I'll let you guys decide, but I can't see a Satan 7, which is what Om Shinrikyo used to make sarin, being employed domestically in the United States with no scrutiny out in the country somewhere by some Islamic extremist or even a right-wing extremist group. Just my personal thoughts on that. Okay, so week 5 preview. U.S. foreign counterterrorism policy, that will be the next part. One question asked, has U.S. counterterrorism policy been successful or a failure since 9/11? What has worked, what hasn't? That'll be a big part of your discussion section. What lessons can we learn from Israel and EU? You'll have articles on both of those, or lecture points and articles on both of those. What can we learn? What can the United States learn? What can be implemented by the United States? And then just to cover a couple of the readings, the Van Evera reading, I'll let you read it, but it's a little old. It's written at the height of the Iraq War back in 2006. Some of it's good, some of it's not that great, but I'll let you read it and make a judgment call. The Hoffman article, that's the second one, written right at the time of the Obama administration coming in. So when you're reading that, ask, has the Obama administration implemented its counterterrorism strategy that it was looking at back in 2009, or where has it deviated? You have the Monar article about the EU. You have the Zakaria article, which I don't have listed here. Excellent article written before the Arab Spring, written in 2010, and it argues. Now there's debate on it, and I bring that up in the lecture, but it argues, we are winning the war on terror. Again, written before ISIS, before the Arab Spring, before Syria, and I'll let you guys make the call on that. And then finally, the Gora Counterterrorism Conference, Comparative Legal Counterterrorism. It looks at 5 countries, the U.S., Russia, Spain, and India, or UK and India as well. And that's a good kind of jumping point for the counterterrorism analysis. So good. Look forward to reading your papers or reading your discussion points, and get your papers again, not this Sunday, but next Sunday.